My 8-year-old son hates me, and I don't understand why. I used to believe that your relationship with your children was a given. To clarify, I believe that as long as you treated your children with love, they were guaranteed to love you back, and that the most you had to worry about if you did the right things was some kind of terrible illness or accident that ended them early. I'm here today to warn you that that's not true. There are worse possible outcomes. My son is 8 years old, and I cannot be in the same room as him without being attacked. He will scratch, hit, and bite me constantly until we are separated. He bites as hard as he can. My arms are 50% bruises right now from partially healed wounds. I've done nothing to deserve this, and I've tried everything to reach him. I've tried love, discipline, ignoring him, reasoning. Nothing sticks, and as the years have gone on, it's only gotten worse. He's already in therapy. We've already tried to get him diagnosed with something. We've tried meds. We've tried no meds. We don't know what's going on, nor does his therapist or doctors. Last night, I finally gave up. I cried for hours and let go of any expectation that I had of having a loving relationship with him. He's 8 years old and hates my guts. There are worse outcomes than outliving your children. Please don't take your loved ones for granted. In the comments, Colo1 asks, how's the relationship between your son and his mother? And OP says, mostly normal, except the added strain of how he treats me. We have a healthy, loving marriage and a daughter as well. Everything outside my son is as you'd expect. Scooby1 Kenobi replies, any other male around who could have hurt your son? Has this been going on, or did the behavior have a definite beginning? Editing because of another post on demand avoidance? Everyone should know that this exists. I just found out, and it's fascinating. Top ad says, I've read something similar before. Is it possible that on some level, your son either sees you as a threat to his relationship with his mother, or is jealous of your relationship with her, and is therefore attacking you to get you to step away? I remember reading about a young boy who was feral to his father because he felt some need to protect his mother and couldn't stand that anyone else would love her. He was violent towards his siblings too. I really wish I could remember where I read it. OP replies, this is a possible theory, just one of many. We have no particular reason to believe this over any other theory. Sunbear asks, or what does he say when asked? OP says, usually absolutely nothing. If he gives a reason, it's, I hate his face. Kinda funny if I disassociate. Taz replies, keep in mind that kids sometimes can misunderstand and get triggered by the weirdest stuff. For example, as a child and teen, I hid that I was reading books, would not talk about books, and overall pretend that I'm not interested with my mum. Why? 8-year-old me was reading The Hobbit. One day, I overheard my mum having a fight with her bestie. Her bestie wanted to go to a Lord of the Rings fan convention of sorts and leave her kids, 8 and 10, alone at home for the weekend. What I understood was that my mum hated Tolkien. So I hid that I was reading The Hobbit and later Lord of the Rings in fear my allegedly Tolkien-hating mum would take the books away from me. And by the time I finished, the habit already set in. While my case is silly and yours heartbreaking, you should carefully examine the circumstances. When it started, what happened around that time? Get different professionals and relatives to talk to your son, etc. And OP replies, thanks. Yeah, we're racking our brains trying to understand this. Nothing makes much sense yet. Crapteal asks, have you recorded this behavior to show to a child behaviorist? It might even show existing doctors involved in his treatment plan that you aren't exaggerating this. And OP says, we should do that. Good idea. But I feel like our doctors and therapists believe us, so I haven't felt the need to prove it. Or there might be small body language indicators that you might be missing. Recording seems like a good idea to get a neutral viewpoint. And OP says, good idea. I don't know anything about child psychology and why kids would do something like this, but that person's explanation with The Hobbit and putting 2 and 2 together in a stupid kind of twisted logic makes a lot of sense if you think of it from like an 8-year-old's perspective. If this happens, then obviously it means that. Mum's having a fight with her friend over Tolkien. Well, it's obvious that Mum just hates Tolkien. So In my own head, that's a very basic way of approaching this situation and thinking, hey, that's probably why OP's son hates them. But who knows? OP probably came back from like a gaycation or something, and then they're like, well, I just hate your guts now. Sorry, that's stupid. I'm stupid. And now, on to the update. Hello. Some of you folks asked for an update when I first posted, including some who seemed to feel lost in a similar situation. I'd like to thank the insane people on my last post who told me to give up on my son. The laughs were therapeutic, and also, please never have kids of your own. Wow, these immature assholes are giving us good Redditors a bad reputation, that's all I'm saying. We took him to get evaluated again, as it was pretty clear what we were dealing with was more than just ADHD. It took us a while to find a place that we thought would do it right this time, and then it took some more time to get a slot. But today, we got the official diagnosis. He has the ADHD and a severe version of it, but he's also mildly autistic. On top of this, he has high anxiety and signs of depression. Some of you are suggesting pandas and ODD, and he does seem to have some of those symptoms, but like the autism, there are things about him that don't fit those diagnoses. There are things about him that aren't typical of autism. For instance, he loves being social. These inconsistencies, and the fact he was younger and had severe ADHD, which masked the autism, made an autism diagnosis difficult at that time. So, why does he hate me? As best I understand it so far, this is what happened. When he was halfway into kindergarten is when it started. His disabilities caused him to struggle as compared to his peers, which led to feelings of inadequacy. Being 5, he didn't have the tools to handle that, so he began coming home from school and destroying the house as a way to express his feelings. We would try to reason with him patiently, but he wouldn't hear it. We tried so many other ways of helping him, but the house was getting destroyed, and the only thing that would get him to stop would be sharp, loud commands from my scary male voice. Stop that! So, that's what I would do every time he started acting up, because that's what worked. What I was doing, though, I didn't know it, was using his anxiety to scare him into behaving better. As time went on, I continued this. I became this scary figure in his life to be feared. The anxiety built until it became a complicated hate. So where are we now? He doesn't attack me on sight usually, which is an improvement, but when I come home from work, he often wants to be alone in his room now. When we go out in public, things are better, but at home, the anxiety he attaches to me is still present, though not as intense. How do I fix it? First, I stayed away. I let things chill out for a few weeks. And when he would attack me, instead of getting angry and punishing him, defending myself by shoving him off me, I remained calm and had my wife correct him instead. Then I decided I needed to talk to him about all of this. I knew that going to his room meant immediately bleeding on my part, so I would armor up in a winter coat and gloves, enter his room, and calmly fend his attacks off. It would end with me restraining him on the floor and just talking to him about his behavior and why it led to my behavior and why I never meant to be scary, but I had to be scary to stop the madness. This had a little bit of a positive effect, but it took a long time. I did this routine for weeks without much progress. He would attack me, I would restrain him, I would talk and ask him to open up, and he would be silent. Then I finally found something that clicked. I told him I loved him and always would, and I thought that he was a special and talented kid, and that I would always be proud of him. He cried in my arms and got angry and wanted me to stop, but I pushed through. So then for a couple of weeks, I kept letting him know that, and over time, his reaction to it became normalized, which is how I knew he really believed and understood it. Now we have a routine that I call Daddy Therapy Time, and when I come in his room and say, let's talk, he gets straight like a pencil on his bed, and I kind of compress him into the bed, and his head hangs off, which he likes for some reason. He's been opening up gradually and actually talking instead of just me talking. Some days are still hard. He still takes everything out on me, but that's okay. Better me than anyone else. That's my job. I still get bit and scratched, but less often now, and I think things will continue to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. For you overwhelmed parents out there, keep trying. There's hope. In the comments, TigerLady13 says, highly recommend getting your son a weighted blanket. The right weight is 10% of his weight. These help autistic folks due to the compression. It helps them sleep, soothes anxiety, and has been a saving tool of a friend. Nothing worked for him to sleep properly his whole life, and then he got a weighted blanket and slept all night for the first time in decades, maybe ever. He's unsure. He told me it's greatly relieved his anxiety and doesn't worry about many things that happen anymore. Best of continued success and joy for your family. OP says, thanks for the tip. We did get him a weighted blanket, but he doesn't like it. Key Mortgage says, it's hard being a parent to a kid with behavior issues as a teacher in special education. I love that he saw his own way of needing to improve instead of his kid. Very wholesome, and I hope his relationship with his son blossoms. I feel the same. My mum taught special ed for 35 years in a self-contained classroom, and she would have to restrain her kids sometimes. This dad is amazing for looking inward and loving his son more than his ego. Thank you for doing what you do too. It's hard, and you're never appreciated enough. But those kids need you, and you really make a difference. After reading this, now I want a weighted blanket, so that's my takeaway from this situation. Maybe my anxiety is going to be treated with a weighted blanket, who knows? But more on topic, I'm glad that things have very slowly sorted themselves out and that these two are not fighting as much anymore, or OP is not being attacked on sight as much anymore. That was an incredibly rough situation, and thank God OP was able to get through it all, because I know so many people would break in a situation like this and just leave. It's such a tough situation on everyone, and thank God something did work here to stem the bleeding. Thank you for coming to Reddit and offering us tools to deal with situations like these, OP. I'm glad that it worked for you. Thank you for the story. Our next post is by user ThrowRA Downsizing, titled, am I the asshole here for telling my fiancé that if he expects me to contribute 50-50, we have to make some serious lifestyle changes? My 26 female, fiancé 26 male, sat me down yesterday and gave me a long talk about how he feels like I don't contribute enough to the household, particularly in the financial sense. I was a bit caught off guard by this, but was willing to hear him out since he wasn't wrong. He makes a lot more than I do, and we've always split bills accordingly, which ends up being about 80% him. I asked what he wanted me to pay now, and he was adamant about it being 50-50. I asked if everything was okay with his job, or if he needed to take fewer hours, and he wouldn't answer me. I honestly wouldn't have gotten upset if there seemed like an actual reason behind it, but he just said he had been thinking about it a lot, over and over. Every time I asked him what brought him to this conclusion, what was going on. And eventually, he just said, this is how it's going to be. Take it or leave it. Those exact words in response to literally everything I said. Full shutdown. No explanations. I told him that was fine. I'll take it. And then I asked if he'd made a Zillow account yet or expected me to. He looked confused and asked why we would need a Zillow account. I explained that there's no way that I can afford half rent on our current place, so we will probably have to move into a 1-bedroom apartment. He got mad and asked why I didn't have savings, and I told him that I do, but I'm not paying rent out of my savings because that's a terrible and unsustainable idea. I also began to go over what our new food budget would be, our new entertainment budget, and that we would probably have to sell the cars and get one less expensive one because I can't afford half of the payments on an Audi and a Land Rover. Then I explained that date nights would probably have to be reduced too, and we could still do like Buffalo Wild Wings or something, but I preferred Thursday nights because you get 2 orders of boneless wings for 1. Basically, if he wants me to pay half, we're living within my means, not his anymore. He kind of agreed to it, but since then, he's been incredibly angry. He's not saying or doing anything, but it's like he's walking around the house in this cloud of pissed off. I sent him 6 Zillow listings, all of which he's called uninhabitable for various reasons, some of which I think were valid, others I disagree with. He's now saying that I'm being unfair and manipulative, and that he tried to come to me with a serious concern about our relationship, and I'm making it impossible for him to talk to me and bulldozing over him. Am I the asshole? In the comments, Centurion Holder says, "Not the asshole at all, and you're making perfect sense in my mind. If he wants 50-50, he needs to understand that your income is the limiting agent in this reaction. It does sound like he has something else going on, and I would mentally prepare for him to call the wedding off. This sounds like he's coming up with reasons to get rid of you in his mind, but he doesn't want to come off as the bad guy." Cold Trash Panda says, "I'm making up jobs and numbers here. So, hypothetically, you make $120K as an engineer, I make $30K in retail. I'm fine living a life where we spend the same amount, but I literally cannot keep up because I'd have to pull tens of thousands of dollars out of thin air. The only option to make this work is if we both live like we both make $30K. Not the asshole. The only options to give him what he wanted was spend less or drain savings and enter credit card debt." There's a lot of ways that you can go into analyzing his reaction, like why he's reacting the way he is to this very obvious situation that he's put on OP. And if we're not going to go down this sudden mental illness route, he has a brain tumor. I know that's my favorite go-to to explain wild changes of behavior that have come out of nowhere. Let's go get him an MRI. Let's go get a CT scan. Let's see what's going on in that noggin. But seriously, how else am I supposed to read his behavior here, if not sudden craziness? It's got to be that he's trying to find a reason to break off this marriage, right? I guess another explanation could be that he's trying to financially manipulate her, trying to get her to become completely financially dependent on him by draining her savings account this way in a, false sense of quote-unquote fairness. That's another way you could go with this. But either way, if he wants to do this 50-50 arrangement, he's got to do what OP said. It's a 2 yes, 1 no kind of situation. This is ridiculous, and I don't think OP is the asshole here for doing something that makes logical sense. He's the one acting illogically. He's being a manipulative dickhead by walking around in this pissed off haze. How about we all have a sit down, we talk about what's going on, why he's feeling this way, why is he reacting like this, what's going on? We need that shot from like Inside Out. It's like, what's going on in her head? And like zooms into his brain. What are the characters saying inside there? What are his core memories? He's unlocked a new emotion, insanity. Anyway. And now, on to the update. Hi everyone. This got way bigger than intended, that's what I said, so I figured a follow-up was owed. So last time I posted was Monday. Monday as a whole was spent just sorting through what I felt and what to do next. There was a lot of silence and a lot of anger and a lot of Reddit advice. Some of which I found very insightful, some of which was less so. Color me shocked. Also, some people think that I made this up as a part of a viral marketing sponsorship between Buffalo Wild Wings, Audi, and Zillow, which honestly would solve the money problems if true, but alas is not the case. On Tuesday, after I got home from work, I sort of just walked up to him on the elliptical and explained as calmly as I could that I had questions, and if he actually wanted to marry me, he needed to be willing to answer them. I asked if he thought I was a gold digger. Yes or no? He said yes. Jesus. I told him that I wasn't willing to be in a relationship where I had to prove myself by sacrificing any sort of stability, and that led to a bit of a screaming match, and eventually a confession. So it turns out, we cannot afford anything we have right now. We are in serious credit card debt. The cars are both on the verge of being repossessed, and I did not know about any of this. He's been cutting corners on actual necessities, including psychiatric medication. That, in combination with some comments from his family, led to some pretty dark places. My fiance had a full breakdown and apologized for calling me a gold digger, which was nice to hear, but this whole thing had me pretty shaken up. I went to stay with a friend for a little bit. Yesterday, my fiance and I did in fact go out to Buffalo Wild Wings and get the 2-for-1 boneless. We talked a lot. I'm still writing fiance for now, and I really hope we can work through all of this. We talked about how to sell the cars. We don't particularly have a choice at this point, and about my income, his income, and the sort of life that we want to have. If we do stay together, we'll be changing how we live a lot. We need to get out of debt. We need to get on our feet. I know some people are going to say that I'm being dumb for not immediately dropping all contact and giving up on the relationship, but I can't do that. I can't look at the guy that I love, who went off his meds to try to make a good life for me, and think he's not worth sticking around for. At least to try. I don't know what the future looks like at all anymore though, and the wedding is very postponed at the moment. Sorry this wasn't a more fun update. In the comments, Yomi Kazuki says, "Watch your credit like a hawk, home slice. While I understand that you want to make it work, there's a few things of note. It's absolutely critical to know exactly how the debt got that deep. It's not at all acceptable that he's been cutting corners on psychiatric medication. He was going to point the finger at you being in the wrong until you brought up leaving. His choices have left you both in debt. How much of an effort is he willing to make to help you both claw out? You really need to take a hard look at this relationship and how your future will look in it." Okay, so then OP makes this really weird post where she lists the things that she likes about her fiancé, and it's speculated that this was a response to everyone telling her just how awful the fiancé is. So, in my mind, this is like my relationship is actually perfect, except for this one thing. So they're taking that concept and making a list out of it, so let's see what OP has to say. It's titled, "Good Things About My Fiancé." 1. Pretty as fuck. This is the most physically attractive man that I have ever met. Literal golden curls like a Da Vinci painting, crystal blue eyes, just so pretty it gives me butterflies whenever he looks at me sometimes. 2. Best I've ever had in bed. Very good at just about anything, actually likes going down on me, and makes me see stars. I've never been in a relationship that was as sexually satisfying as this one, and there's no way I'm going back after this. 3. His voice is very sexy, especially when he speaks Russian. He also speaks French, Spanish, and apparently Latin, but Russian is my favorite. 4. Got a vasectomy so I could go off birth control. He was the one to suggest it because he saw how much I hated those stupid pills, and he was willing to get an actual surgery for me. 5. Full of little surprises and adventures. He's always doing things like getting me wildflowers, making my favorite breakfast before I wake up, or even planning little day adventures for us to go on together. Life is never mundane because he's always making it special. 6. Actually does housework. Does not need to be asked to do housework. He actually does more of the cleaning than I do, and I cook most of the meals, because he thinks that sweeping and mopping floors is meditative. I do not know how I got this lucky on this one. 7. Plays guitars. Really, really well. It's very attractive. 8. Can physically pick me up and carry me around, and does this often. I'm not a small woman, to be clear. This is legitimately impressive and makes me feel so nice. 9. Reads. I can actually talk about books with him. You have no idea how rare this is, especially to find a guy who will read anything I say, "Oh, I liked this." You do not comprehend the feeling of mentioning offhandedly that you're reading Midnight Sun and having him come up to you the next day after spending all night reading so that you could talk about it together until you live it. 10. Has shown me that there is actual romance in life and that I deserve more than a flat, boring relationship devoid of orgasms or dancing in the rain or music. He brought real passion and fun and aliveness into my life, and in a world where that's treated as an unrealistic fantasy for most women, he's shown me that I deserve something unrealistic. In the comments, Alta Boris says, He may be the first man to give you romance, passion, and fun, but he's not the only one who can. These things are great right now, but long-term stability depends on much more important factors. Financial problems are a leading cause of divorce because once the fun stage is over, you're simply faced with the crushing reality. If you do stay with him despite all advice, please keep an eye on your bank accounts, credit score, and him in general. Don't marry him until or unless something changes in a major way, because if you take on his debts, you'll be stuck. I Am the Real Dill says, it's a little concerning that your top 3 are physical attributes, plus number 8, and not personality traits. Looks fade, people get injured, they age and physically change. If the biggest thing you like about him are how he looks, how he does in bed, and that he can pick you up, you're not setting yourself up for success. One car accident, one work injury. Hell, even just 5 or 10 years, and half your list could be out. I'm also really curious about the vasectomy thing. You said he did it for you, but are you sure that he didn't do it for him so he won't end up with a baby on the side? All the men that I know who have had vasectomies had them after they were married and had at least one child. I don't know, this just rings alarm bells for me. And now, onto the second update. We are out of debt. It feels so good to say that and to have it be true, but as of 3 days ago, everything is finally paid off, and we've made our way back onto solid ground. Almost 2 years ago, I made a post here about my 28 female, fiancé 28 male, wanting to split things 50-50, and my offer of compromising on lifestyle changes. As it turned out, he was off his meds and had managed to get himself into some serious debt. A little under 100k, trying to provide a life that we could not afford on a combined 155k a year. Things were rough. I almost left him a few times, but we have finally made it through to the other side. I handle the finances, 100% of the finances. I give him a budget for buying coffee. It wasn't fun, but in exchange, he started doing more of the housework, so it evens out. We moved from our over-the-top apartment into a shared living situation, which, while not ideal, was leagues better than my initial plan of getting a trailer. We have roommates, but they're on another floor, so it's not too bad. And we have our own bathroom, which was my only real stipulation. We've lived like we're a 70k a year couple doing actual 50-50 finances, and every extra penny that he's made has gone directly to paying off the debt. We sold the cars, obviously. Traded them in for a nice used Ford Maverick and a Vespa. That helped a lot. There have been no more lavish vacations or over-the-top restaurants with $500 price tags. It was rough for my fiancé at first. He's always been very much a rich boy, and I think losing that as an identity was difficult for him. That being said, he's gotten so creative lately. It's been amazing to see. He'll make me things if he can't buy me things. And we've started cooking together instead of having me do almost all of it. Our room is covered in the things that he has made for me, and it's really lovely. We're still in love, we're still going strong, and we can finally start actually planning our wedding again. We're gonna get our own place first, but the wedding is next on the list after that. I'm so glad that we stuck with this, and being on the other side is the greatest feeling in the world. Thank you to everyone who offered advice. I don't know how things would have ended up if I hadn't had the courage of my convictions, and I'm genuinely grateful to those who directed me to Dave Ramsey and Caleb Hammer. Y'all are awesome. In the comments, Stigley says, "Congrats. So nice to see someone properly making changes rather than just appearing to do so. Hopefully now the debts are cleared, you can keep him on this current life for a while longer and build up a decent cushion of savings and investments." OP says, "Well, I'm still keeping a hold of the purse strings for the foreseeable future, so things should end up alright." Just Following says, "This is some advice given actually by experts, but make sure you're sitting down with your fiancé and doing the monthly budget and review with him every month. Even if you break it down and oversee it all, this will prevent resentment from him later. This is also the perfect time to talk about major upcoming purchases and status of savings and vacations, etc. It can be a great shared bonding experience. We do it, and it feels like we are on the same page at the end. We just feel like a team and aligned. A lot of people don't do this, and down the road, the one not responsible ends up feeling like they are being financially abused. Yeah, that's some good advice to end on, and despite the naysayers, I'm glad that this did work out. You don't always have to break up with someone if you're in a situation like this. It's just, when you're in situations like these, how often is that partner willing to change? And if they don't change, maybe it's time to reevaluate the situation. And that's where I see breaking it off with someone being the smart and wise thing to do. Again, I'm glad everything worked out for OP and their partner. He was willing to change. He was willing to do the hard yards with OP to see this engagement through and keep them together. I hope that OP continues to take the advice of the community here that is good and not insane, and know the difference between good and insane advice. I feel like that goes without saying, but yeah, so that he doesn't feel like he is being financially abused. It looks simple on the surface, but I'd imagine in practice it's quite complicated. Anyway, that's just my view of things. Not entirely snarky today, but it's what it is. Don't think these stories deserved snark. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.